This is AgriCountry, brought to you in part by Alice Chalmers and your nearby Alice Chalmers dealer. And here's your host for AgriCountry, Ed Johnson.
Good morning and good to have you with us for this week's edition of AgriCountry. We're going to begin today's show by taking you to the 54th Annual Ohio FFA Convention as we visit with Bruce Kettler, the immediate past president, and Art Schleister, the quarterback, the farm boy from Fayette County, who was the keynoter for the leadership session. And then we're going to visit right in the round barn of John and Pauline Manchester up in Auglaize County, and then go right out the cornfield and visit with their son Tim and his wife Martha. And to conclude today's program, we'll visit with the president of the American Farm Bureau, Bob Delano. Welcome to AgriCountry.
Your Alice Chalmers dealer has offered some powerful reasons to buy an AC 5030 or 5020 diesel-powered tractor. Both of these mighty 25 and 31 horsepower Alice Chalmers diesels give you 12 forward speeds plus differential lock. And right now you'll find big savings on diesel power at your nearby Alice Chalmers dealer's place. AgriCountry takes you to the 54th annual meeting of the Ohio FFA. We're at the Lousy Building at the Ohio State Fairgrounds, and our guest, the president of the Ohio FFA, Bruce Kettler, his home over near Anna, Ohio, Shelby County. Bruce, how many people on hand for this banquet?
Tonight we have 3,578 people here to enjoy the convention, and it's one of the largest banquet, probably is the largest banquet in the state of Ohio.
How much work did the team put into this affair and the entire convention? And perhaps we shouldn't share who's on that team.
Well, I think it would be interesting for us to keep track of the hours that we do. We start clear back in December putting this thing together as a team. It's just amazing how much work it does take. The members of the team: Jeff Getz, the Vice President; Terry Brown, State Secretary; Rick Rudd, State Treasurer. We have Beth Core as State Reporter. Rod Limes is a State Sentinel. Then we have 7 sectional vice presidents. We have Dave Hamilton, who is in the Southwest section, Valerie Parks in the Southeast section. We then go up to the Northeast. We've got Joanne Starkey up there. We move all across the North Central with Leroy Billman. And we go up to Northwest with Charlie Dalton, down to the West Side with Jerry Boley, and finally finish up in the Central section with Joni Shawn.
And that team, Bruce, would represent how many FFA members totally in Ohio?
We've got 20,500 members right now in the state of Ohio. That's about as current of our membership as we've got. Down just a little from last year, but still going very strong.
We want to recap for our viewers, what is it like to be in the president's shoes, be in a banquet hall, 3,500 people, and have the key role of responsibility in making this night happen and knowing that all the brass of Ohio's agriculture is here?
Boy, that's tough. I tell you, I don't think words could describe it. It's a feeling that no one could really describe in words. It's just something else to look out and see the many Blue Jackets, the friends and guests that we have here at this banquet. It is something that I never dreamed would be possible. It's just a unique feeling with chills running up and down your spine all the time. It's hard to believe, especially when you walk up there to hit that gavel for the first time.
But when Dr. Earl Kantner, the executive secretary, said it's time to roll, you certainly were ready.
We were ready. There's been a lot of practice put into this, and when we're done with our practice, we feel it's got to be at least as good and hopefully just as good as we're going to put on at the convention. And when Doc says go, we go with it.
Bruce, you're truly an outstanding young man. Nice to have you to be a part of AgriCountry. Our guest, Bruce Kettler, the president of the Ohio FFA.
Bruce and his officer team conducted a tremendous banquet, and it was just a real joy to be with them. The next morning, yours truly was graciously introduced before 3,000 young people who were on hand for our leadership session with OSU quarterback Art Schleister, good old farm boy of Fayette County, who was recently drafted by the Baltimore Colts.
Art, you finished co-Big Ten champs, and for those of you who watched the Michigan game, what a tremendous effort this quarterback made late in the ball game, and it turned things around for sure for the Buckeyes and for that day up in Michigan. What's it like to go through 4 years of Big Ten football, Art, at Ohio State? You came in with as much publicity as any young man who has ever come in, and from day one, publicity pressure was there. How does a guy come out of Miami Trace High School with all of that publicity and really handle that kind of situation? I certainly want to commend you, because young people, if ever was a guy that could have had a situation where his hat would not have fit, it was Art Schleister. But Art, I'm happy that did not happen. How does a guy handle all the national publicity, magazines, television, radio, newspaper?
Well, it's tough. There's a lot of good people out there in the press, and also there's a lot of bad people. And I've got my share of bad press. I've got my share of good press. But I would say that I just don't read very much of it, and I don't listen to it. We went through a year, my junior year, where all we got at the start of the year was good publicity, and I think everyone read it and listened to it, and we got a little bit, as I would say, lax, and didn't really push as hard as we should have, and as a result didn't have as good a year. So I learned my lesson there, and I just try to take it as it comes. And I love to have good things happen to me, but I know there's going to be some bad things too, and I'm just going to have to keep going and every day just strive to do my best and do as well as I can every single day. And I don't really worry about the press, and I just take them for granted and let them do their job, and I just try to do mine.
Let's move to the pro side now, Art. When did the scouts from Baltimore really get serious with you?
Well, I didn't know if they ever got serious with me until they called me and said they drafted me. So I was very nervous about the draft. They came in and worked me out twice, and I'd had some good workouts with them. And they came in once more then right before the draft, and I probably threw as well as I've ever thrown before in my life. And I think that convinced them that I was the best person for them to draft. And it's going to be a good opportunity for me, because Baltimore traded away their starting quarterback, and they don't have really any established quarterbacks there. So I'll have a shot to go in and play as quick as possible, and hopefully I'll get a chance to do that.
That's great. When you say, Art, that the scouts worked you out, what do they take you through?
Well, they basically, I throw the different passes, drop back and throw to the left, drop back and throw to the right, throw the short passes, throw the long passes. They want to see how far I can throw, and a lot of different things like that. It's really not a physically tough workout where they run you a lot, but they want to talk to you, see if you're mentally sharp, know about the game, and also they want to see if you have the arm to play and the footwork and that sort of thing to play.
When you drop back to throw that pass and you're trying to read the defense, do you throw to the man or throw to the spot?
I throw it anywhere I can throw it. Oh, no. My basic concern is to get rid of it, because I know in a matter of seconds I'm going to be decked.
Yeah.
And
when you get decked this fall, you're going to be decked.
That's right. But I'm going to be paid for getting decked.
When you think combine, I want you to think Gleaner. Remember that your Alice Chalmers dealer has both the rotary and conventional in 6 different sizes. The Gleaner gives you more capacity, more productivity, and more value for your dollars invested. See your Alice Chalmers dealer today. Bright sunshine, rich brown soils, and plenty of wind today as we take you into the southeastern part of Auglaize County. We're about 17 miles east of Wapakoneta, which is, of course, the county seat. We're at the MTM Farms, and this is the farm where they have that unique round barn, and we're going to go from here and visit with John and Pauline. That's Grandpa and Grandma. And then we're going to take you out to the field where today corn planting is going on, and we'll visit with Tim and Martha Manchester out there. John and Pauline, certainly nice to be with you in a most unique situation. We're right in the middle of the round barn, so to speak. Now, the way we're dressed, it's spring as we look at the calendar, but the morning doing this, it's rather cool, and that's the reason for the jackets. How many years, John, do we go back with the Manchesters at this farm?
My great-grandfather came here in 1858.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many acres at that time?
Oh, about 200, I think.
How many acres today?
We're farming 1,400 acres now.
I understand that you actually retired from the farm operation several years ago.
In 77.
And so Tim's operating now.
Yeah, he's doing everything now. I help him a little, but
Right.
he does all the.
How much other help does he have?
There's 2 other men full time.
Pauline, the house here, it looks like a home that should really be over on the East Coast in Connecticut somewhere, perhaps. How do we happen to have that kind of a design here?
John Hewitt's grandparents came here from Vermont. So it is built as a house would be on the East Coast. And it was built in 1877. And it was remodeled briefly and somewhat in 1920. It's a very large house and quite spacious, and it has held up well, and it's a beautiful home.
Did you and John ever live here?
No, we never lived here.
How did that happen?
Well, I think I don't like to move. I've lived in my home now for over 40 years, and it's been added to, and I think it's the way I like it now. So I've never lived in this big house.
Were you from this part of Ohio?
No, I was from Henry County. I have a farming background, and I moved down here then when I was married in 1938.
You had a brother that was
Yes.
an extension.
Yes, my name was Speece. I have a brother, Lyle, who was in extension in Fulton County. He is retired now.
John, as we get back, you look at this land out here, and it looked as though some of the best land that lays out of doors. How is it to work?
Well, it's black clay. I mean, it's all right. It's good land. It raises wonderful crops, but you got to handle it right. You don't dare work it wet, or you're out of luck.
A lot of fall plowing?
Most all fall plowing, practically. We do some chiseling, but then we chisel the bean ground and plow the corn stalks, usually.
When we drove up, you just had to be impressed with the condition of this round barn. When was this built?
1908.
Is there a lot of maintenance?
Well, yes, off and on. About 3 or 4 years ago, we had to rebuild it quite a bit. They've started to fall down, and then put a new roof on it and painted it, and it's pretty decent shape now.
John, how big around?
102 feet in diameter.
How high?
Well, the silo in the center is 45 feet, and it's about, well, I'd say the top of the thing up on top of the cupola is about 85 feet.
You said 1908, and your granddaddy built it?
My grandfather, Jason Manchester.
Any idea what it might have cost him?
Now, I don't know for sure, but I'd guess around $5,000.
And I think you and I were discussing before coming on the program that if a guy was going to try to rebuild this today, he might be looking at $150,000, maybe more.
Could be.
Now, explain how this barn is built, John, and some of the purposes that it was built for.
Well, it has 3 floors, and on the lower floor, there's huts built in concentric circles, and the outside circle is built for feeding cattle. It has mangers, hay mangers, and grain mangers all the way around. And then inside that, there was a circle of horse stalls, and we had room for probably 18 horses in there. And then inside that, there was another circle, and we had a few cow stalls in there for a few cows. And inside of that, there's a silo that's 18 by 45. On the second floor, there's a grain bin clear around the outside to hold about 3,000 bushels of grain. And there's a driveway that you can pass 2 wagons all the way around next. And inside of that, there's a corn crib that'll hold 2,000 bushels of corn. Then, of course, inside that's a silo. On the next floor is a whole hay mow, and that'll hold 300 loads of loose hay.
If you had, for any reason, to build another barn, would you look at a round barn?
Well, I doubt if I would now. It would cost too much to build it, and I don't think they're practical for the way we farm now.
I want to go back to Pauline for just a moment. Just be my guest. A lot of people would come by to see this barn, Pauline.
Yes, they would. They usually do come, and if they contact some in the family, they might be allowed to look through it.
You can't help but see the cupola clear on the top. And we're going to be up there with the cameras taking that view. But how did they happen to have a cupola out here in the country?
Well, this was used in the east. The sea captain went up into the cupola, and he could look out to sea if the ships were coming in. Now, why it was put here, I'm not sure, but there is a beautiful view of all the surrounding land anytime you care to go up there. And in the summer, I think it's even more beautiful. It looks like a patchwork quilt.
Well, It is a beautiful, beautiful farmstead, and we're going to take you now here on AgriCountry out of this round barn and out to the field with Tim and Martha. Tim, certainly appreciate the fact that you would stop the planter, a busy day for you. How many acres of corn this year?
About 600.
And beans?
750.
But I haven't spotted any wheat.
No wheat. Our beans were planted late last spring, and it would have made for late planting of wheat last fall, and the economics of the wheat didn't look good either, I didn't think, so we didn't plant any.
Would you normally go with wheat, though?
Off and on. It's not a definite part of my rotation.
You still into any continuous corn?
Very little. I had some bad rootworm damage in some continuous corn last year, and so I've always stayed away from it, but this year I don't have any continuous corn planned.
Most of the neighbors rotating as well?
Yes, there's a lot of wheat planted around here. A corn, soybean, wheat rotation is popular, and then also the just corn, soybeans, and back to corn rotation.
Let's talk about the corn a little bit this year. Row width?
30 inches.
And population per acre?
I'm shooting for 27,000.
And would like to have how many live plants?
24 to 25,000.
And let's just hope we have a growing season, Tim, that beats last year.
I hope. It looks like we're getting a lot better start this year.
Yeah, it certainly would appear that way. When you go to the field, how much fertilizer will you put on at planting time?
Normally, I do put on row fertilizer. Put on normally 250 pounds, 923/30. This year, due to the economic situation, I'm cutting back, and fields that I believe have adequate fertility, I'm not putting on any row fertilizer.
Now, how will you apply your N later?
Well, the N has already been applied.
Oh, you've already put it on?
Anhydrous ammonia. It's already been put on.
And how many total pounds of N would you like to have per acre?
200 to 220 actual.
And with that kind of a fertilization program, what kind of yields would you hope to achieve this year?
Well, my long-term average is around 135. I'd like to do that or better.
Soybean average yields in this part of the state, Tim?
Anywhere from 35 to 50, I'd say, or 55. An average would probably be around 40.
Do you go with an insect program?
Where I'm going from beans into corn, I don't feel there's an insect problem. I don't treat for insects in that situation.
And what herbicide program would you follow?
We use a combination of Atrex, Lasso, and Blade X.
You know, when we get to the planting season, wives become deeply involved, and I know oftentimes running a lot of errands to and from. What about your situation, Martha?
Well, I take food to the fields, run errands, pretty well watch the home front while he's in the fields because that's where he is. And
do you get caught up in excitement of the planting season?
Oh, yes. I'm always glad to see him get started, and I always like to watch the fields as they are planted, and of course I plant a garden and everything too, so I'm busy with that.
Tim, as we talk about this grain operation here, a bit different than many operations in Ohio because you're also in the business of producing seed that you sell. Share that with us.
We raise and condition Ohio certified soybean seed, public varieties, on about half our soybean acreage to produce 5 to 10,000, well, close to 10,000 bushels of finished seed to sell.
And how big of an area would you service? Just the community here, or broader than that, perhaps?
Most of my soybean seed goes, I suppose, within a 20-mile radius, and I have customers as far away as Chillicothe also.
Now, when you go to the field to put soybeans in, and being a seed producer, you'll follow some different practices than for those of us who just go out to raise soybeans.
Yes, we need to be very conscientious about keeping varietal purity when we plant. We plant for certified soybeans. I'll plant registered seed, and changing from one variety to another means that I have to completely clean out the planter from any soybean seed to make sure, check the frame and any other part where a seed might lay to make sure that's not on there, so that
no stray soybean seed could drop into your field of pure registered seed.
Tim and Martha, certainly nice to visit with you. We invite you to stay tuned because we're going to take you to the 54th Annual Ohio FFA Convention right after these messages.
The new 8000 series tractors from Alice Chalmers deliver 360-degree visibility and a sleek new styling with big, quiet, comfortable cabs. Enter from either side and carry enough fuel for a day's work. And here's the new 390 corn planter, available in 8, 12, 16, or 24-row units for accurate, conventional, or no-till planting. See your Alice Chalmers dealer today.
We take you now to the University Hilton Inn on Old Tansy River Road here in Columbus, and our AgriCountry guest, the president of the American Farm Bureau, Bob Delano. Bob, nice to have you on the show. Nice to have you in Ohio. Several weeks ago, a number of state presidents of farm bureaus went to Japan to enhance U.S. agricultural exports. How did it go?
Well, we think we had a terrific impact upon the whole Japanese society, particularly the areas in the private sector. And of course, government has its opinions, but we had an influence on the industrial sector in Japan and on the consumer sector and also in the labor union field to cause them to believe and support the principle of free trade, and in the meantime freer trade, and hopefully the restrictions that have been placed against agricultural products of the United States will be lifted in the next several months.
Did you come away with the feeling that we might even increase exports to Japan? They're already our best customer.
Well, that's correct. $6.6 billion, matter of fact, our largest customer of agricultural products. I think we will increase, but you have to take the trade restrictions off to allow us access in. And once we do this, we can see nearly an immediate increase of $1 billion. And then as we get growth in the consumption of our products in Japan, we'll see more increases in exports to Japan from an agricultural sector.
I understand also that President will be making a trip to Europe.
Yes, our two target areas have been Japan and also the European community, because the Europeans are doing a few things that we think are in violation of GATT, and we want to convince them that they're doing wrong. One is they're subsidizing exports, particularly wheat, France is, into our traditional North African markets, and we want them to either put a stop to this or understand our position and the real danger that if we don't have the bilateral agreements between countries as a part of the whole GATT process, that we could face trade wars in this country and between other countries, and it's certainly not in the best interest of the United States or the recipient country.
Bob, certainly nice to have you with us. Our guest on AgriCountry, Bob Delano, president of the American Farm Bureau and himself a farmer in Virginia.
So good to have you with us for this morning's edition of AgriCountry. If you have family farm suggestions or feature suggestions, drop us a note to ABN TV, 1819 Wesleyan Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, 43221. Next week here on AgriCountry, we're going to take you to the OARDC at Worcester as they prepare for their open house this summer. And then from there on into north side of Wayne County to the dairy operation of John and Patty Steiner. And also next week, we'll recognize the outstanding college students of the College of Agriculture, Home Economics, and Natural Resources at Ohio State.
Thank you for joining us today for AgriCountry with Ed Johnson, brought to you in part by Alice Chalmers and your local Alice Chalmers dealer. AgriCountry recognizes farm families who produce daily our abundant food supply.